can get started now. Just like to, again, welcome everybody, and thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. My name is Tom Rogers. I'm the Marketing Manager of Untitled Solutions, and I will be facilitating the meeting today. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. We have the lines in listen-only mode for our presentation, but there are a few options for asking questions during the presentation. You can type a question into the question box down at the bottom, or if there's a question you would prefer to ask verbally, you can use the hand raise function on the left side of your screen there, and we will unmute your line. We also will be unmuting our lines at the end for a general question and answer session. If you have any issues or problems during the presentation, you can send a question in the chat box, and we will do our best to help you out. Today we will be presenting on building customer loyalty with Microsoft CRM. Presenting today will be Dana Anderson, our Microsoft CRM product manager. I believe most of you on the call are familiar with Dana, but for those who are not, she's worked with Untitled Solutions for 6 years now, and prior to that worked for Microsoft. She's worked with Microsoft CRM since its pre-beta days and has worked on implementations as varied as 1,000 users with complex integration needs, all the way down to just a couple users looking to track activities. So again, today we will be taking a look at building customer loyalty with Microsoft CRM. So in today's market, with the information of competitors so readily available just about anywhere on any type of device, businesses are more concerned than ever with keeping their client base intact. When you think about it, your customers are your customers right now, but you can't build a wall to keep them against their will. What you can do is understand what it takes to satisfy them and exceed their expectations and truly deliver great service to them. So what are some of the challenges you're facing today? Well, businesses are telling us that their customers can leave at any time, really, no matter what they do. And to a certain extent, that is true. Customers are being offered all kinds of new options, more so than ever, and they can leave, as we showed with the analogy prior, they can leave at any time. You can't really create a wall around them. Now that aside, you have a better chance at keeping your existing clients because you understand them better, you know what makes them tick, and you have the opportunity to deliver the goods and services to them better than anybody else. Just a quick statistic here that I think we're all familiar with. It costs as much as 10 times, 4 to 10 times as much to capture a new customer as it does to provide existing good service to an existing one. And with the point I think that makes here is that marketing dollars don't always have to be spent on getting and attracting new customers. You can spend it just as efficiently keeping your existing ones or making sales to existing clients that you have. If your customer is making more purchases from you or is having better experiences with you, they're going to be far less likely to leave. I think the key takeaway is that loyalty isn't something that just happens. It comes with the frequency of doing business. So back to this point, your customers can leave at any time. Retention is not something that's going to be automatic. You need to keep in touch with your clients with relevant communications around the products and services that they're going to want. Nobody likes to be sent messages about products or services they don't need. For instance, at Untitled Solutions, we support 4 different products, and we try our best to make sure that we segregate our clients so that we're not sending somebody that's using a project management accounting software information about a Microsoft CRM webinar, for instance, unless it is relevant to them, of course. So communication needs to be relevant. It needs to be based on your customer and the knowledge you have of your customer if it's going to make a positive impact and improve their sustainability with you. Another statistic here, only about 3 of 5 customers are actually satisfied with the response they receive when contacting a company. And so what that really means when you think about it is that 2 out of every 5 customers you connect with will not have a satisfactory experience. And so the question businesses have to ask themselves is, do you really know how you measure up on that issue? Do you really know how satisfied your customers are? The market is always changing, so customers, again, are always being offered the opportunities elsewhere, and what you need to do is keep your customers as satisfied as possible. Don't waste your customers' time. Make sure that you have the information about them readily available. You should know more about your customers' interactions with their company than they do. If they have to explain things to you, that's not good. You should know right away all the interactions they've had with your customer. Exceed their expectations with speed and accuracy of your responses by knowing what they've done with your company. Everybody's time is limited, but do you spend more time with your existing customers or trying to find new ones? It is important you make sure you don't ignore your existing customers. They're your best source of future business, and a systematic way to communicate to them with relevant information and timely messages is how you're going to build that customer loyalty that I think we're all seeking. So the key point from everything I'm saying here is, remember, again, you cannot build a wall around your customers to keep them from leaving. But what you can do is use the information you have about them, your knowledge of them, the relevancy of what they're looking for, and what sort of responses you need to have to make sure that you keep your customers. Okay, so with that, we're going to take a quick look at how Microsoft CRM can help you with that. And I'm going to flip this over to Dana now, and she's going to be running the rest of the presentation. You should have it. Apologize, just give us 1 second. We're having a little technical glitch on our meeting. Try it this way.
Good morning, everybody. Again, thank you for your time. Again, my name is Dana Anderson, and what we're going to be working on today is kind of reinforcing one of the key points that Tom was referring to, is pulling those customers back in. The statistics are very valid that it does cost a lot more money to bring in new customers than it is to keep customers. Now, while CRM does a wonderful job on helping you to bring new customers in, we're going to focus on that one area and kind of walk through a day in the life of one scenario that might help you to pull customers back in. And with that being said, one of the most common areas that you will work with in trying to pull customers back in is individual contacts within your database. Now, this scenario that we're going to be walking through can be done in any of the areas within CRM, being that accounts, leads, et cetera. But today we are going to focus on active contacts within our database and hopefully either market a new product to them, notify them about a sale. There's an infinite number of things that you can do to pull these customers back in. But with that being said, we really want to, in our scenario today, is really focus on who are the decision makers that we've identified in our database of contacts, and work through it and hopefully either pull back, keep these customers as active in our database with additional sales. Now, in our scenario today, unfortunately, if you take a notice in the grid here, we're working with active contacts. And if you'll notice that the column for role, and what role that CRM provides to us is what is their role within their organization that we are keeping track of. Things like, and this could be self-defined, but in our world, one of the areas that we identify our contacts as decision makers. And we definitely don't want to remarket to our existing contacts unless they are really decision makers, because we want to be as effective as possible with our marketing initiatives. So unfortunately, in our scenario today, we did not capture that record of data called role. So our first scenario here today is yes, we could open in our world here today in our sample database. We only have 14 contacts, so it wouldn't be all that unreasonable to open each one of these records and populate the role. But in the reality, so you could have hundreds, if not thousands, of contact records, and opening and editing and saving each of those contacts would be very laborious, to say the least. So one of the areas that we are going to focus on today and start with is how to use the Export to Excel feature, and then edit that Excel spreadsheet and then import those records back in. Now, typically when you import records back into CRM, or if you import them into CRM, it's going to be what's considered an insert. It's going to create a new record. That's not what we want to do today. We want to take Adrian and Brian and Kat, and we want to just edit them and update the edits with the insert. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to use the Export to Excel feature, and you'll see here in a minute what we're going to do is open that in Excel. We'll make the edits quickly in an Excel spreadsheet, and when we import those in, it's not doing an insert, it's doing an update of these 14 records. So what I've done, you can start one of two ways. In my world, my active contacts has all of the columns that I need to do for the edit, but we'll actually be walking through some advanced find features here as well today. You could create a query that has an infinite number of columns here, but the root of my statement here is you need to make sure that the field you wish to edit is part of your export, because you cannot add a new column to a spreadsheet and then import that back in. So your first pass is to make sure, number one, that you have the column that you wish to edit. In this world, we do have role in the export, so we're going to highlight that, and we're going to click Export to Excel. We're going to give this a moment for the screen to totally load. Now, if I had more than the default view of, I only have 14 records. So in my world, my default view says I want to show 50 records in a grid. If, in fact, I had more than 50 records, you would see another option that says from all records on all pages. So you want to make sure that you're pulling in all of your valid data. In my world here, a static worksheet with the records from this page, because there is only one page, is fine. There is a checkbox here at the very bottom of the form that's extremely important. You must make sure that this is checked in order for the Excel spreadsheet that will actually pop up here in a minute to be imported back in for updates versus a new record insert. So we click that box to say make the data available for re-importing, and we click Export. We're going to open that in Excel. And if you notice, you have the same columns that were in that view that we just saw in CRM. I'm going to actually increase some of these columns so that you can see all of the data here. Okay. So these are the exact columns that were exported from the view. That view showed your contact, your first name, middle name, etc. Now the beauty of this here too is if we take a look, I'm going to enable editing, basic function in Excel. Let's increase our grid. Bear with me a second. Okay. All right. All right, now the beauty of this is, if you notice, and I'm hoping that this shows through through the webinar here, when I focused on the data type for Adrian, it says data type is a text, and the maximum length that I can put in here is 160 characters. If I focus on middle name, hopefully you can see now that the maximum length for the middle name is a text field, it's 50 characters. So what Microsoft has done a good job of is you, the editor, to kind of give you a guide as to what this Excel spreadsheet is going to be expecting over in the CRM system. And let me increase the column for role here. Now, here's the nice thing here. The field for role, and for those of you familiar enough with CRM, role is what's called a pick list value within CRM. So you actually have to pick a value from a drop box. Now, CRM is going to be expecting the exact value that is stored in that field in CRM. Well, I'm in a spreadsheet and the field's empty, so how do I know? This is the beauty of exporting it out of CRM. It actually brought the data that's behind the field. And you can see now, hopefully, that there's 3 values that we have in our CRM system that designate a role in our CRM system. One is decision maker, one is employee, and one is an influencer. So for our purposes today, we want to make sure that we're marketing to decision makers. So I'm going to edit a few of these to be decision makers. And obviously, somebody that knows who they are would be editing these accordingly, and mark a few as employees. So you can see I can actually, instead of opening each record in CRM, I'm actually going through in an Excel spreadsheet. A lot easier than opening, editing, saving, reopening the next record. A lot faster. Let me just go ahead and copy here to here. Okay, so that quickly we were able to edit the spreadsheet, and those 14 records, it probably was about 1/10 of the time that it would have taken to actually open each one of these records and edit them within CRM. So I'm going to save this spreadsheet to a location, obviously you want to remember where that is. And we'll just put today's date, which is 11/18 already. So I'm going to save this to my documents area, 11/18 for re-import active contacts, and I'm going to go ahead and save that spreadsheet. You're going to get just a warning message that's going to save it to an Excel spreadsheet. Hopefully you'll see that here in a moment. And you just always want to accept the default of yes to that. And that's really all you need to do. Now, there's a couple of cautions here, and I made this. This was a new feature that was introduced in the most recent version of CRM, version 2011, that you are able to take a spreadsheet, edit, and push it back in as inserts. One of the biggest mistakes I made going forward, because you would think that I could actually go in here and insert a column, add my values, and et cetera. What you don't ever want to do is once you've exported this out of CRM, you do not want to make changes to this spreadsheet by, say, add columns, or taking columns away, because CRM there's some code behind this that CRM is going to be expecting to see. If you notice here that the column A, B, and C is actually hidden here, that's because there's some code behind the scenes that will help facilitate this to be an update into CRM versus a new record or an insert. So the biggest caution that I can give you guys is do not necessarily edit the columns by adding or deleting. Edit the values in here, no problem. And let's go ahead and get out of our spreadsheet here and go back into CRM. At this point, hopefully you're seeing CRM again and the spreadsheet has minimized. And I'm going to click the Import Data button on the ribbon at the top. Okay. What the first screen that will show you is the upload data file. You're going to navigate and find that data file that we just saved, and I saved that as 11/18 for re-import active contacts. So select your spreadsheet, click Open, and click Next. Now, for those of you familiar with the importing feature within CRM, what you may notice is it skipped a couple of screens here where you had to map fields from your spreadsheet into where the data should be received within the CRM system. It skipped totally over those, and that's because we did take this out of CRM with the checkbox saying, I want to make this available for re-import. And this explains why I tell you don't edit, because the map is kind of built in behind the scenes. It immediately takes you to the last screen that you typically see on an import, and that says, do you want to allow duplicates? Typically in an insert or an update situation, no, you would not want to do that. So leave the default of no and click Submit. So again, those of you familiar with importing, several screens are missing. That is normal. And what you'll see now is the congratulations screen, and things are actually hopefully importing into the back of the scenes here. We're going to click the imports hyperlink here on that screen, which will take you to the area where you can actually see if it's completed yet, check to see if there's errors, check to see which ones were successful. And it actually is still in the process of doing our imports here. So I'm going to hit the little green arrows to the left for a refresh. And you can see we had 14 successful. And I'm going to actually open that so we can see what was successful, what may have not been. In this case, we know that there wasn't any failures because that column had none. And we'll take a look at the contacts fully imported. And for those of you familiar with imports, what you would typically see in here is an insert in the operation. But notice, because we had pulled this out of CRM with that checkbox selected, it knew that this was an update situation. So it is an update operation, and 14 records were successful. And obviously, we always want to check if there was anything partially imported. I know in our world that did not happen, and we had no failures. But that is a sanity check that you'd always want to do. So let's go back to our active contacts now. Close out our importing screens. It's going to take us probably a minute or so to catch up on the webinar here, so bear with us a second. Okay. So now if you notice that same active contact screen that we showed you initially, the column for role is now completely updated and has all of the values that we put in on the spreadsheet.
And one of the beauties of this, just to give a real-world example, is about 5 or so years ago, and this is 2 versions of Microsoft CRM ago, we wanted to define basically 5 significant roles at all of our clients. Who's the billing contact, who's the president of the company, who's the IT decision maker. And number one, it was a very laborious process to go into every individual record and update that information. So this obviously speeds that up. But number two, the other beauty of this is now we can very quickly pull out an Excel spreadsheet. It's XML, but the sheet that you saw, the original thing, and take a look at everybody with that drop-down feature. From time to time, of course, things change, clients change, roles change, that sort of thing. Now you have a quick snapshot of who all those key roles were, and you can quickly make a change with a drop-down, import it back into Microsoft CRM, and all your records are up to date rather than going through one by one, taking a look at everything, changing the field, changing the information. Now you can do that quickly in an Excel spreadsheet.
Right. And another real-world scenario, and Tom is 100% correct, where, you know, as I mentioned in the past, this is a new feature for version 2011. And a lot of times when you're just initially implementing CRM, or even 6 years into our CRM implementation, as Tom can attest to, he may come to me tomorrow and say, hey Dana, is there a way to keep track of a new piece of data? I know this is probably a bad example. I want to keep track of Social Security number or tax ID numbers for all of the account records. Well, if we had not planned on that, it's very easy to add that field, number one, but if we hadn't planned on that, it would be back to what Tom is saying, a very laborious process of opening those up. So not only are we updating for marketing purposes, but it also can be done for implementation as well as customization initiatives where you decide you want to keep track of a new piece of data, and it's very easy to do so once the new custom field has been added to the form. But we're going to focus more on the marketing side of this, and as I kind of mentioned earlier, what we want to try to work on is we have a scenario where we want to make sure that we are letting this group of decision makers know that maybe there's a new product, maybe there's a new pricing model, you name it, it's infinite what you can do. So one of the things we're going to focus on, I need now to be able to pull out a query and see who my decision makers are in the system. And that's where advanced find comes in. If there is any field on any form is actually able to be queried with this advanced find utility. These are going to be very simplistic advanced find examples. And advanced find can be very simple, like the ones we'll show you today. But they can be a little bit more complex. And I would say we'll probably announce some webinars in the future where we'll cover some more advanced topics on advanced find. So stay tuned for that. But for today's purposes, we're going to focus on a fairly simple query that we want to see all contacts that, number one, are active. So status equals active. And these are all a list of the fields that are on the contact form. And I'm going to ask Tom to make sure that the refresh is happening here because I'm going through a bunch of fields here. So I'm going to try to take this a little slower. So the status equals or doesn't equal, etc. I'm going to make sure that it picks select equal. And I want to make sure that I am selecting only active contacts because the last thing you want to do is mark it to an inactive contact in your database. So we're going to pick active. So I'll wait for that to populate on the webinar here. And our first line should say now, I want to see all contacts where status equals active. But I also want to make sure that we're selecting that new role field, and I only want to see those that are designated as decision makers. So we're going to arrow down to the field called role. And we want to make sure that they equal decision makers. And if you see, hopefully the screen has refreshed there, and you can see those same three values that the Excel spreadsheet showed you: decision maker, employee, and influencer. We only want decision makers for today's scenario. Now that's our query. We want to see all contacts where the status equals active and where the role equals decision maker. And I'm going to go ahead and click the results column. And we see that we have 12 contacts that we marked on that spreadsheet as decision makers. But I'm sitting here taking a look at this, and it's like, how do I know that they're decision makers? Because all that out of the box that it gives you is full name and the business phone. And that's by design, but you, the user, can go back to the advanced find, and you could add as many columns by clicking the Edit Columns button. So again, full name and business phone are what it's giving you. We're going to add columns, and we're going to make sure to add that field for role so that we can make sure our query is actually giving us valid data. So let's arrow down, and we're going to select the field for role. And just make it a little bit, hopefully it's in the grid now. You should have full name, business phone, and role. But I want role to go over to next to the full name, so I use the green arrows to move that over one column level. And I click OK, and I click the results button again. So now I can actually see that not only have we gotten the full name and the business phone like we did the first time, but I actually have 12 decision makers. And until I added that column, I didn't know that my query really was valid, but now I can see that it truly is. So make sure that when you're writing these advanced find queries for the purpose of the export in the first pass where you're exporting to Excel, make sure that your queries have the columns that you anticipate there, as well as on this back end when you're running your queries. Add the columns accordingly on that side. So now we have a list of 12 decision makers. And you say, okay, what can I do with that? Well, in our scenario today, we want to create a phone call follow-up, because we here at Intelitech, at least, we like the real time. We don't like necessarily the letters or the emails, etc. We want to actually make a phone call and notify these people that there's the new pricing model, etc. So I want to schedule a phone call for all of these people. And there's an area within CRM that is called a quick campaign. And for you marketing people here in the room with me, Tom, and for those marketing people on the phone today, you may be familiar with the term quick campaign. You may also be familiar with the term campaign. And you say, okay, what is the difference? The the campaign that is in the marketing module, it is a true full-blown campaign, such as multi-level planning task. You're assigning budgets to it. There's multi-outreaches to get to an event. So it's very commonly used for things like trade shows and those things where it's a multi-touch initiative and a multi-time frame to get to your event. The quick campaign is a one-touch initiative. I want to make a phone call to a client. I want to make an appointment with a client. I want to send one email to our leads. So it's a one-touch initiative. That's what the difference with a quick campaign versus a full campaign. So I want to do a quick campaign to these 14 people, so I'm going to click the quick campaign button. And I can say, again, be careful with this, because if you notice here, you should be seeing three options. One for the selected records, one for all records on the current page, and the third option is for all records on all pages. In our world today, because there is only 14, it really is not much of a difference. But if you go again over that default of what is being displayed behind the screen here, if I only said select records on the current page, it may be only giving you 50, 100, 250 records, when in fact your data set may be thousands of records. So if in fact you want to make for all records on all pages, make sure you select the last option. For my purpose, selected records is fine because I've selected all the 12. And what should be popping up is it's a wizard. It's a Create Quick Campaign wizard that's going to guide you through how to create your activities for this. And I want to do a phone call to announce a new product. This is just something to remind you what the Quick Campaign was about. It is just a name. And you can see there's a multitude of activities. Again, it's one activity. In this case, we want to pick a phone call. You can assign the records to me. I'm signed in as Tom, so it's going to assign these to Tom Rogers. You can assign the phone calls to the owners of the records. So if those 12 had different owners, then it would disseminate those to the owners of the 12 contacts and set up a phone call for them. Or you can assign them to another user. We only have the one user in the system. You click Next. And the topic here, this is what's going to show up in this case, Tom Rogers' activity feed to show him that he's got a phone call to make. So call contact to notify about new product. Okay. Owner will be Tom. You can actually specify a due date. So I want Tom to make these phone calls on Friday. You can tell him it's a high priority. So this is basically the same type of things. If you're familiar with the task list within your Outlook, these are fairly common fields. And this phone call will actually show in two places. It will show in Tom's activities in the workplace within CRM. And within 15 minutes after creating these, if Tom is using the Outlook client for CRM, it will also show these phone calls in Tom's Outlook task list for Friday due date. Now, this is not, we don't have that's actually linked into Outlook today. We're showing you the web version, but we're going to show you how it will show up in his workplace. You click, probably not the best thing to call somebody at 12 a.m. I don't know about you guys. I'm usually still sleeping. We'll schedule those to be about 8:30. You click Next. It just gives you an overview of the 12 phone calls were selected, 12 contacts were selected, and a phone call activity will be created. You click the Create button. And I don't know if you can kind of see, but the mouse is kind of flashing in the background. I'm going to go ahead and close my Quick Campaign, or the Advanced Find in this case. I'm going to minimize it just in case we need to come back to that. gives us a few minutes in the background, but each one of these contacts is now getting a phone call scheduled for Tom to accomplish for tomorrow. So tomorrow morning when Tom signs in, he typically would go to his workplace within CRM, and typically CRM defaults to the dashboards as Tom has defined, and he takes a look at what his activities are for the day by clicking Activities. And if you notice now, there is actually 12 phone calls that Tom has scheduled with a start date of 11/16. So it actually created these 12 phone calls for Tom in the background. Tomorrow morning when Tom gets in, he's going to look at his to-do list here in either one of two places, right here where we're showing you within the CRM web application, or for those of you that prefer task list within Outlook, they will also synchronize to Tom's task list. And the default synchronization is 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, he would actually see these in his task list for tomorrow. So from a full circle, within about 20 minutes or so here, not only have we edited our records, we have run advanced find queries to pull out those records and created a quick campaign to make a phone call to those records based on data that we use to update the records. This is a very small example, but hopefully will give you just some things to think about of potentially what you could do with the three areas, such as importing updates to your CRM records, running advanced find queries against CRM records, and once you get those data result sets, what can you then do with that result set? In this case, we used it to create a quick campaign that created phone calls to follow up and hopefully pull those customers back in and let them know, in this case, that there's been a new product that we're announcing.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Dana. And hopefully that gave everybody a good look and feel. Pulling this back to my view here. So as we said at the beginning, again, your customers are your customers for now, but you cannot build that wall around them. But what you offer your customers is what's going to keep them coming back, and hopefully we've shown some good ways that Microsoft CRM can assist you with that. So with that, I am going to go ahead and take the lines off of mute, and if anybody has a question, you can feel free to chime in, or you can, of course, type your question into the chat box as well. Give everybody a moment here. Okay, it looks like the first question here is, are there multiple, I guess this is talking about the drop-down in the Excel spreadsheet, are there other fields that would have the drop-down field as well beyond the role?
Any field that is specified as a drop box would have the same behavior as you saw on the role. So only pick lists do show you the drop-down values. Hopefully that answers your question.
And for those of you who may have used the previous versions of CRM, I think you were aware of some of the difficulties you had with getting that information in and making sure it was formatted correctly here. Okay, looks like we got another question here. And if I don't have a quick campaign option, can I add that button in the administrative options, or is it a property of the CRM version we use?
Okay, not sure what version you're using. Quick campaigns have been around at least since version 4, maybe even version 3 prior to today. If you are not seeing the quick campaign button, then that might be an indication that a security role that you have been assigned to has not been, you have not been given rights to do quick campaigns. Because CRM is very intelligent from a menu perspective. If you don't have security rights to do something, it doesn't tease you and then show the button or the menu options on the left-hand navigation if you're not allowed to do something. So if it's not there, it might be due to the fact you don't have security.
Okay, and again, you are off mute. If there's any questions you want to ask verbally, please feel free. If there's anything you want to type into the question box, again, please feel free to do that as well. And any follow-up questions that occur to you afterwards, we have our contact information there. It looks like that might be all the questions we have today. Just checking the queue one last time here. Well, if there's no additional questions, I'd like to thank everybody for your time today. I'd like to thank Dana for a great presentation. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact us at the number there on the screen, or you can visit our website or email us. And again, thanks everybody for your time. And with that, we will conclude today's presentation.